The film begins with introducing a man named Peter who is practicing go-karting at a circuit. It is revealed that Peter is a member of a gang, but his gang is more focused on car theft, which they then resell. After finishing his go-kart practice, Peter is approached by his gang leader named Dragoslav. At that moment, Dragoslav orders Peter to steal a car that night because their gang has run out of stolen cars. Without hesitation, Peter immediately agrees to the gang leader's request. Before carrying out the theft, Peter invites two of his gang members, Baka and Demeter, to help him with the theft. Once everyone is gathered, the three of them immediately go to a parking lot and start looking for the best car. After searching around the parking lot, Peter manages to find the most expensive car, so the three of them immediately break into it. Peter and Baka drive the car while Demeter follows them from behind using Peter's previous car. Unfortunately, during the journey, the stolen car has a very advanced feature that suddenly causes it to move in reverse. As a result, Peter and Baka have to drive recklessly, running through all the red lights. Luckily, Peter has decent driving skills, so he can control the car and drive it to the headquarters even while driving in reverse. Upon arrival, Baka and Demeter complained to Peter because stealing that car almost endangered the three of them, but Peter reassured them that the car has a very high resale value, so Dragoslav will surely be very pleased. The next day, a car dealer is shown instructing his son to deliver a vintage Mercedes to the most powerful mafia boss in Serbia. The car dealer's son is Fili, and he immediately takes the car. The scene shifts to show Peter arguing with his girlfriend, Safija. Apparently Safija is upset because Peter hasn't married her even after all these years, which Peter eventually promises that sooner or later he will marry her. Elsewhere, Peter's younger brother, Nayad, is seen arguing with their father. At that moment, Nayad wants to go to boxing practice, but his father forbids him, as he wants Nayad to become a businessman or manager, not a delinquent like Peter. Unfortunately, Nayad insists on going despite his father slapping him. Not long after Peter arrives home and sees his father struggling to carry his belongings, however, Peter chooses to go inside and meet his mother rather than help him. It is revealed that Peter's relationship with his father is quite strained, as his father considers Peter to be a failed son, and thus he strongly dislikes him, while Peter's mother appears to be very fond of him. On the other hand, the most powerful mafia boss in Serbia, named Yanni, is seen. It is revealed that Yanni is known for being extremely ruthless, and he won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who dares to disrupt his business. At the moment, Yanni is waiting for the delivery of a vintage Mercedes from the car dealer, which is currently being brought by Philip. Unfortunately, Philip has yet to arrive, so Yanni keeps calling him. At the same time, Philip deliberately ignores Yanni's calls because he is having a brief meeting with a prostitute. Not long after, Peter is seen gathering at his headquarters, where Dragoslav shares that he will soon have a grandchild. Therefore, he wants to celebrate the good news with a glass of homemade with his best men. Knowing this, Peter goes to a local shop to buy some snacks, but he accidentally spots the vintage Mercedes that was purchased by the mafia boss and is now being delivered by Philip. It turns out that before they were about to enjoy their time together, Philip and the woman stopped by the shop to buy contraceptives. Seeing the vintage Mercedes right in front of him, Peter's instincts to steal are immediately triggered, and he quickly takes the car. On his way, Peter calls Dragoslav and tells him that he has just acquired a very rare and vintage Mercedes. This car must be very expensive, and Peter plans to gift it to Dragoslav's soon-to-be-born grandchild. However, instead of being pleased, Dragoslav tells Peter that he should return the car because he has already found out that the Mercedes belongs to Yanni, the most powerful mafia boss in Serbia. Unfortunately, Peter, who has gone through the trouble of stealing the car, refuses and immediately hides the car in a safe location. Sometime later, Philip is now being interrogated and tortured by Yanni for his actions. Yanni then asks why Philip took so long and how the car ended up being stolen. In truth, Yanni doesn't care much about the car itself, but there is a valuable item belonging to Yanni inside the car worth millions of dollars. Knowing this, Philip can only apologize, explaining that he had met a woman earlier. Because of this, Yanni mercilessly kills Philip immediately. After that, Yanni contacts a corrupt police chief named Stupor, who always works with him. Yanni then orders Stupor to capture the thief who has just stolen his car. Without much discussion, Stupor immediately agrees to the request. A few hours later, Stupor and several of his men arrive at a nightclub where they meet Demeter, a friend of Peter. Stupor, knowing that Demeter is a gang member, tries to politely ask him who stole Yanni's car. However, Demeter refuses to talk, so Stupor resorts to violence. Unable to withstand the torture, Dimitar finally reveals that the person who stole Yanni's car is Peter. The next day, Stupor leads a team to raid Peter's house, but Peter manages to escape quickly. Since Stupor failed to capture Peter, Yanni plans to send his men to catch the thief. However, Stupor disagrees because it could trigger a major commotion. Therefore, he comes up with the idea of making Peter a fugitive and spreading the news all over social media and TV. Stupor will also frame Peter as the murderer of Philip, even though he was killed by Yanni himself. Shortly after, all the TV news broadcasts report that Peter is now a fugitive, and he is also falsely accused of being Philip's murderer. Upon seeing the news, Dragoslav becomes worried about the safety of Peter. At the same time, Peter goes to meet Baka, who is also aware that Peter has become a fugitive. Initially, Baka is reluctant to help him because he had just gotten out of prison last month. However, Peter keeps pleading until Baka finally agrees to help him. Meanwhile, Yanni is shown meeting with Dragoslav. At that moment it was revealed that they were once friends, but their relationship became strained when Yanni became a mafia boss. During their meeting, Yanni demands that Dragoslav take responsibility by returning his car and handing over Peter to him. However, Dragoslav swears to his former friend that all of this is beyond his control. Initially, Dragoslav tried to get Peter to return the car, but Peter remained stubborn and disappeared, becoming unreachable. Upon hearing this, Yanni refused to listen to any excuses and immediately threatened to kill Dragoslav's entire family if he didn't hand over Peter along with the car. Not wanting his family to become victims, Dragoslav had no choice but to agree to Yanni's demands. Not long after, Dragoslav went to Peter's hideout, but no one was there because Peter had already left with Baka. As a result, Dragoslav tried to send a message and call him. Unfortunately, Peter ignored the calls. It turns out that Peter and Baka were visiting Dimitar's house to ask who had informed the police about the theft. Unfortunately, Dimitar pretended not to know, even though he was the one who told everything. After that, Peter threatened Dimitar with his gun, but Dimitar still refused to be honest. In the end, Peter and Baka decided to leave after not getting any information. Shortly after that, Peter and Baka visited Nayod, who was training in boxing. Peter then asked Nayod to drive the stolen Mercedes, while he and Baka drove another car. Peter did this to deceive the police, who were searching for him. Unbeknownst to him, Peter was being watched from outside by several of Yanni's men, which led to a chase. Eventually, Peter, Baka, and Nayod managed to escape from Yanni's men. Upon arriving at the hideout, Peter asked Nayod to go home because the place was not safe for him. Initially, Nayod refused because he wanted to stay with him, but Peter, not wanting to involve his younger brother, insisted that he had to leave. 30 minutes later, Peter and Baka inspect the stolen Mercedes. At that moment, they are shocked to find that the Mercedes contains several kilos of illegal goods belonging to Yanni. Because of this, Peter finally realizes why Yanni went to such lengths to deploy all his forces and the police, as it wasn't the car he was after but the illegal goods inside. That night Peter and Baka meet with Dragoslav, who pleads with Peter to return Yan's car. Dragoslav also reveals that Yanni had ordered him to capture him. However, since Dragoslav considers Peter like his own son, he can't bring himself to do it. Hearing all of this, Peter apologizes, saying that this time he must refuse Dragoslav's orders, as Peter plans to demand a ransom from Yanni, and only then will he return the car. In the end, Dragoslav is left speechless and can only ask Peter to be careful. After Dragoslav leaves, Peter contacts Yanni and says that he will return the car as long as he pays a ransom of 2 million. Yanni responds that this is impossible, as Peter's girlfriend, Safija, has already been captured by Stupor, the corrupt police chief. As a result, Yanni immediately threatens to kill Safija if the car isn't returned by tomorrow night. Hearing this, Peter proposes a new deal where he will exchange the car for his girlfriend. After Peter sends the location, Yanni and his men are seen preparing to leave. At the same time, Stupor, the corrupt police chief, suddenly stops Yanni and suggests that he handle the situation. Instead, this time Yanni refuses, as Stupor has repeatedly failed to capture Peter over the past few days. Eventually Yanni trusts his own men more than a corrupt cop like Stupor. After Yanni left, Stupor, feeling hurt by his words, decided to approach Dragoslav and proposed that they work together to trap Yanni. Dragoslav, who also felt betrayed by Yanni, immediately agreed to the plan. The next day, Peter and Baka are already at the meeting location with Yanni. However, Yanni doesn't show up and instead sends his right-hand man, Milos, along with several of his men. Seeing this, Peter demands that they release his girlfriend before he returns the car. Unfortunately, Milos refuses, leading to a shootout. Outnumbered, Peter and Baca decide to flee while taking the stolen car with them. Unfortunately, Baca is shot, and Peter quickly takes him to the hospital. In the late afternoon, Milos and his men are seen arriving at Peter's house. At that moment, they immediately start harming his brother, his father, and his mother. After that, Milos demands that Peter's mother persuade Peter to surrender to Yanni. If that fails, Milos promises to return and kill them all. On the other hand, Peter, who had just arrived at his hideout, was shocked to find his friend lifeless. Upon entering instantly, Peter realized that this must be Yanni's doing, making the hideout no longer safe. Therefore, he quickly decided to leave immediately. On the way, Peter receives a call from his mother, who tells him that they were just threatened by Yanni's men. Crying, his mother pleads with Peter to surrender and not repeat his actions. Hearing his mother's fear, Peter promises to resolve the issue as quickly as possible before pulling over to the side of the road to calm his mind. Shortly after, Peter receives a call from Stupor, who reveals that Safidja is not in Yanni's custody but is actually being held by him at the police station. Stupor also informs Peter that his girlfriend is pregnant, and if Peter wants her to be freed, he must meet him immediately. Without saying much, Peter rushes to meet Stupor at the agreed location. On the way, Peter feels a mix of happiness knowing he will soon be a father and sadness over the current situation, as his family and he are still under threat. As a result, Petir becomes lost in thought and nearly crashes his car. 30 minutes later, Stupor is about to get into his car when he gets inside. He finds Peter already there holding a gun to him at that moment. Peter demands that Stupor release his girlfriend immediately, but Stupor tries to get Peter on his side first, saying that he is now on his side. Hearing this, Peter orders Stupor to get out of the car and explain what he meant earlier. Stupor then explains that he is now working with Dragoslav to take down Yanni. If Peter joins them, Stupor promises to free his girlfriend, but only after everything is over. With no other option, Peter agrees to join Stupor. However, he needs to go home first to reassure his mother and retrieve his weapons. Sometime later, Peter arrives at the parking lot of his house but chooses not to go inside, instead sending greetings to his mother through Nayad. Peter also instructs Nayad to bring him his weapons from his room. When Nayad delivers the weapons to Peter, they are caught by their father. However, this time their father doesn't get angry. Instead, he pleads with Peter to resolve the situation quickly. On the other side, Yanni is seen attending a meeting with other mafia members. Suddenly, he receives news from his men that Peter has been captured by Stupor and is now at his headquarters. Knowing this, Yanni quickly heads to the headquarters to confront Peter. Unbeknownst to Yanni, this is all part of a scheme devised by Peter and Stupor to trap him. Upon arrival, Yanni sees Peter with his hands cuffed, pretending to apologize. At that moment, Yanni quickly asks where his Mercedes is. Peter replies that the car is hidden in a certain location, and he can take Yanni there. Then, Peter leads Yanni and his men to the location where the car was stored. At the same time, Yanni was delighted to have his car back because it contained several kilos of illegal goods. However, when Yanni opened the trunk, he was suddenly attacked by Dragoslav and Stupor men, allowing Peter to defeat Yanni and all of his henchmen. The next day, Peter visits Dragoslav to express his gratitude and apologize. Dragoslav, who is happy because his grandchild has just been born, forgives Peter. After that, Peter goes to the police station to meet Stupor and arrange for the release of his girlfriend, who is still in custody. When he arrives, Stupor tells him that Safidja can be released immediately, but Peter must be detained for 3 months since his name is already listed as a fugitive. In the end, Peter agrees to accept the punishment as long as he is allowed to hug his girlfriend first. Peter then asks his girlfriend to take good care of their baby, and he promises to marry her as soon as he is free. While crying, she says that she will wait for her Peter no matter what.